Thank you very much, Augustine, and welcome once again, everybody. So without further ado, our first speaker for this webinar would be no other person than Amarachi. So I'm just going to go ahead to read a bio before she takes the floor. Amarachi is a chant performer, poet, broadcaster, mother tongue advocate, a seeker, researcher, cultural anthropologist, and mentor of the Sound Your Gong initiative. Our core interests are indigenous language sustainability, culture curation, and intangible heritage preservation. She has performed in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, the United Kingdom, where she completed a 4-month performance fellowship with the British Royal National Theatre, and many performances in the USA. One of which is actually Gendering Africa Symposium, an annual African Women Conference at Columbia University. She was also selected for the Performance Across Identities 2021 in the United States. Amarachi is actually a research, and she's actually on a research, I beg your pardon. She's on a research and interpretation internship at the Frontier Culture Museum, Virginia. She's also a researcher, a culture educator, and costumed entrepreneur at the Igbo village in Virginia, USA. She's currently a graduate student at Syracuse University, New York, and has received plethora awards for her works, as well as she has also featured in many media programs and publications. So right now, I'd like you all to please welcome Amarachi with a virtual clap while she takes over the floor.
Thank you so much. So I'll quickly share my screen. Thank you so much. So I am happy to be here. I'm happy to join this conversation because it's only when we have platforms like this that we can actually share some of these issues that are a kind of worrisome to Africa at large. So today, adding my voice to the topic of discussion, which is hybrid identity and the death of culture, I will quickly start by conceptual. Okay. I'm trying. Sorry. Okay, the concept of identity has been a major focus of sociologists, cultural anthropologists, intercultural communication researchers, as well as cross-cultural scholars. These fields have made significant efforts in understanding the identity in relation to culture. So what is identity then? According to dictionary.com, identity is defined as condition or character as to who a person or what a person is, the qualities, belief, etc. that distinguishes or identifies a person or thing. So we are looking at what is, sorry, I'm just having a, let me shift all this. Okay. So what is culture? Kalma in the book, What is Culture, defines culture as the way we live, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the language we speak, the stories we tell, and the way we celebrate. It is the way we show out imagination through art, music, and writing. Culture is also about our roots. Where did our ancestors come from? So culture is the totality, as we know, the simplest definition of the way of life of a people. So here you will see that culture is going beyond just wearing clothes or speaking language. It is also talking about someone's root, where you come from, where is your ancestry coming from. So what is identity? According to dictionary.com, identity is defined as condition or character as to who a person or what a person is, the qualities, the belief that distinguishes or identifies a person or a thing. So, hybrid, according to dictionary.com, hybrid could be understood as a person or group of persons produced by the interaction or crossbreeding of two unlike cultures or tradition, etc. Thus, to say that something is hybridized means that two or more unrelated species or breed or varieties have been infused together to produce a new morphogenic synthesis. So cultural hybridization, which is what we are looking at today. In the book Globalization, a Basic Test, Ritzer and Dean define cultural hybridization as the mixing of culture as a result of globalization and the production out of the integration of global and local of a new and unique hybrid culture that are reducible to either local or global culture. I would just say global. By implication, a hybridized culture loses its originality as it attempts to copy something new. So homogeneous or heterogeneous cultures. A homogeneous society is one in which members share similar belief, attitude. For instance, when you come to Nigeria, the Igbo people, we are homogeneous. And then when you talk about Nigeria, which is where we look at the heterogeneous society, on the other hand, it's a society where there is explicit differences in values, attitude, belief among the various ethnic group or racial composition of that society. Nigeria has a different ethnic group, more than 200, I would say. And then we have almost 300 and something languages. So we are made up of different homogeneous societies, which make up a larger picture of a heterogeneous society. So in a homogeneous society, the question of cultural identity hardly arises, although I would also argue that today it also arises. This is because the issue of identity is clearly understood within the ethno-linguistic or racial ecosystem of that given society. This begs the question, what triggers the search for cultural identity then? So the question of cultural identity comes to play mainly when two or more cultures engage in a symbiotic contact. In their publication titled Culture Contact, Structure and Process, Scottman and Urban defines cultural contact as any case of protracted direct interchanges amongst members of a social unit who do not share the same identity. So Shibil, and in her book, Who Am I? Understanding Identity and the Many Ways We Define Ourselves, stated that our identities are not formed in a vacuum and that we are influenced a great deal by outside forces. So the impact of transcontinental cultural contact between Africa and the rest of the world. So these impacts are obvious due to factors such as neo-colonization. So neo-colonialism, as we can see, even when colonialism has ended, so to say, we still have other ways of colonization. For instance, in my village, in my indigenous community, which is Edem in Nsukka, which is in Enugu State, which is just a small community, children in my community are still learning A is for apple, even when such a child might not see apple for the rest of his life or for the greater part of his childhood life, but they are still learning A is for apple, and they are still learning Mungo Park discovered River Niger, and they are still learning all these colonial constructs that has over the years shifted the view from what we are to what we are taught to be. And so it is not just about the people in the diaspora. When you look at those in my own local community, they are still suffering the issue of neo-colonialism because we are learning not to be who we are, but we are learning to think in the English way, to think in the Western way, to think in a way that is acceptable to the, in quotes, global society or global spaces. So you are not left out, because when you are learning who you are, it's assumed that you are going to be left out. And this is why even in our local communities, you find out that parents are no longer allowing their children to speak their indigenous languages, right? So a child who is in Enugu State in Nigeria, Enugu State is an Igbo land, a child that is in Enugu State cannot understand or speak the Igbo language because the parents have been made over the years to believe that if the child learn how to speak the Igbo language, the child wouldn't be able to speak the English language well. And perhaps this parent is also one who has grown to speak both languages. But for some reason, the impact of colonialism and the damage is making them believe new theories which they have formed from their head, which has no basis, that when a child speak their language or when a child learn who they are, their indigenous ways of food, so they cannot, of course, know how to connect or be in the spaces, which is the larger picture of the Western spaces. So Westernization, for instance, you come to Nigeria where we have the tropical rainforest, hot weather, you see people tying up themselves in suits and jackets and trying to look Western. And so when you dress like this, dresses like what I'm wearing now becomes something that is put to be for churches or events or weekends or something that is not serious. You cannot defend your thesis in academic spaces with your traditional attires or something that can identify you as who you are. You cannot do that. You cannot go for interviews with attires that represent you. You cannot do anything. You cannot appear in a way. You cannot even be proud of eating your indigenous food. Of course, except it is imported back to you in, for instance, you want to eat your vegetables, you don't know, you run away from it because it is local, of course, it's not Western. But when the same vegetable is taken back to the Western countries and packaged into capsules and returned back to you, you embrace it because you have been made to think in the Western way. So even the medical sciences that we know, today you see in communities where a woman is supposed to put to birth and other women ordinarily have the knowledge of what to do, they do not know it anywhere. They have to look for hospitals. And this is why, again, in some of the local communities where we have bad roads and access to hospitals, we begin to have higher rates of maternal mortality because we are all trying to be Western, where the women of the communities are no longer equipped in their indigenous ways to help a woman who is about to put to birth because she's trying to be Western. And so before they could have access to road and go to whichever nearby hospital, then something is happening. So this is the Westernization and the also continuation of the neo-colonialism we are talking about. Then the Christianization. For instance, in my place, I am using my experiences or my place because this is just to place it so that somebody can actually understand where I am coming from when I talk about this thing. So it is not just about those living in the diaspora. I'm talking about people who are living in their own communities, where you believe that the big tree, which has been in your community for ages, is now the tree responsible for holding all the destinies of the people of the community. And what would they do? An overzealous pastor will wake up one morning and begin to cut down these trees, of course, by calling the people of the community to join in this destruction. And then they cut down these trees and then they burn down the artifacts. The same artifacts that you come to the UK and you go to the British Museum and you look at some of these your artifacts there, the Ikenga there, the deities and all that are there. But you go back home today, you hardly even see one. Because Christianization is letting them know that anything that have to do with your cultural identity is evil. And so in order to disconnect yourself from generational causes, you have to destroy, burn, and then take away yourself in spirit and in physical from these things so that you will be accepted in the space that has been created for people who are holy. And so when you are African in the true sense, when you are trying to live in your own indigenous ways, you are not holy, you are evil, you are sent to hell. So if you want to go to heaven, then you must stop answering your surname, of course. You must destroy everything that have to do with anything that connects to your ancestors. You must, of course, burn down artifacts and trees and houses and destroy everything that have to do with you so that you can be accepted into the holy space of heaven. And so this destruction continue. Same with Arabization, whereby even in places like Nigeria, for instance, in Muslim practices, people cannot pray with even their own languages because they are made up of different languages. You have to pray in the Arabic language. in order for you to pray to God, right? So this is just like the Christianization. You have to act in certain ways. You have to pray in certain way. You have to understand things in certain way. And when you are praying and close your eyes, what do you see? You have to see foreign figures. Otherwise, you are not praying. Because if you close your eyes and you see anything dark, open it quickly. You are just seeing the devil. So you have to close your eyes and see white and see something that look like flowy hair and white, for you to be sure that you are connecting to God. So if you are praying and you are not seeing anything of that figure, then you are not seeing God. Of course, you are seeing the devil, because the devil is dark and black, and the devil is only the only thing that will have that dark skin. So anytime you close your eyes or dream and you see anybody that have a dark skin, then that is the devil talking to you. You have to run away from it. Same with Islamization. So this becomes some of the challenges that we are facing. In fact, I would say that it is even when people now travel to the Western countries that it seems as though they are trying to connect back to their roots, because now you are in the bigger picture and you are finding now that, okay, even in this big picture, we have those small groups that make up this bigger picture. And so who am I really? So you are not here and you are not here. Our people will call it also, that is the bats. So you can't be in the land animals and you can't be among the birds. So you see people try again to connect back to who they are, to connect back to their culture. So the consequences of the inter-societal or inter-border contact are observable in areas such as changes in worldviews, food, language, attitude, dressing, mood, and general behavioral patterns. So like I said, when we are at home, people at home now, the organic food that people here are trying to afford is the same organic food that the people at home are running from. And so people at home want to eat spark, chicken and chips and burgers and all the packaged stuff and tin stuff in order to feel that they belong. And so the rich people in Nigeria will only buy food and eat food from the bigger, of course, malls and markets, where they buy all the canned stuff to show that they belong, that they have arrived. And so when you go to the local market to buy the vegetables that is cheap and affordable, you are seen as poor and you are seen as not Western-like. So you have to reject all this that is good for you, your value system that is good for you, in order to be accepted. I just shared a video on my Facebook where a child of 15 years took his friend, 15 or less than 15, took his friend to kill his friend, right? Or with they went to a dibia, a herbalist, to kill his friend in order to make money and buy a car. I'm talking about a child. It's there on my Facebook wall. And then you look at this child, even when the friend was there begging, the child couldn't look at the friend. He was sure that I am ready to do it. I want to do it. So now you ask, where is this coming from? In the Igbo society, wealth was not measured with money. It was measured by your ability to feed. And that was why when you look at the pre-colonial Igbo society, there was nothing like hunger, people going hungry, because everybody will farm. But today, even farming is now seen as the career of the poor. So when you farm to feed your family, you are poor. You have to leave farm. You have to wear tie and put on suits to look for jobs that are not even paying you in order to be accepted as somebody who is doing well. Because when you are at home farming, even in your parents, even the people of your community would keep insulting you that you have failed, you are a failure. So until you leave that space to become Western, to look Western, you are continually reminded that you are a failure. And so you see people continue to disconnect, and people continue to harm themselves consciously or unconsciously in order to just belong. So people want to harm themselves, do something that they know it's not good for them, just because they want to belong, because they've been made to, the mental damage, they've been made to believe that until they do that, they will not be accepted. So hybridized culture therefore affects the areas such as political, social, economic, and cultural, religious, educational, and ideological identities. It also causes shift in consciousness and constitutional structures, the way we kept our communities, so that even when one wants to commit something or want to do something, the person will think it twice, have all been destroyed. So you see, anything goes. So parents will even buy, somebody wrote on my Facebook that a parent bought laptops for his children took them away from school to learn Yahoo. So you can see that because perhaps the black parents have been seeing that whoever have done Yahoo Yahoo around him made it. And so it is all about extreme materialism. Anything that have to do with cultural values, people will tell you, please get out of, please stop making noise. So we want money, we want big cars, big house, and that is all the essence of life has been tied to having a gigantic house and driving some big cars. So if you are not having these two things, it's like you've not arrived. And then when you have these two things, you begin to drink and eat a lot of meat and food in order to show that, yes, I indeed have arrived. So in the book titled Communicating Ethnic and Cultural Identity, Alexander et al. Defined cultural identity as identification of communication of shared system or symbolic verbal and non-verbal behaviors that are meaningful to group or group members who have a sense of belonging and who share tradition, heritage, language, and similar norms of appropriate behavior. So transcontinental cultural adaptation due to colonization, westernization, and Islamization, Africans have massively found themselves in hybridized culture. These foreign forces and ideologies are replacing the traditional values as known to the pre-colonial African society. So the individualism, of course, of African communalism is now being replaced with Western individualism. So consumerism and materialism, so that our communal ways of whether you are rich or poor, you have shelter over your head because people will come together to build, people will come together to solve problems of a society, is no longer there. So even when somebody is seeing a child falling into fire, they keep quiet because no, the parents will say, who asked you? Why are you touching my child? So we are constantly trying to be individualistic as against the African world philosophy of communality. So individualism has done more damage to us, but no, because individualism, of course, is Western, so that even siblings cannot eat from the same plate. They've been taught that for your sister or your brother to dip the same hand in your plate of food is a taboo. And so you see children will cry even when they are just 2 years. They cry and scream because their sibling put the same hand in their plate. But we all know that in Africa, we are allowed to eat together, to share, to dance, to play together. But now children are not even allowed to play. People build houses with tall fences, and then they are not allowed to be. They are allowed to form. When they were the very day they are, in fact, when they are still in the stomach, they're already singing some Western lullabies to them. So you will not hear something like "Onye tere nwa na-ebe akwa" that will make a child sleep. You hear Tom and Jerry, Tom and Jerry. Even when the child do not understand what you are saying, but of course you have to be Western. Of course, I mean you have to be Western. So divorce is becoming prevalent among the diaspora Africans as a result of cultural hybridization, because we have been taught. What communalism does for us is that it also teaches us some level of endurance, of some level of like you can endure stuff, or you can accommodate stuff. So you are open-minded, because in communalism you know that people have different views. But divorce is now so celebrated that when people are married, in fact, go to the Nigerian social media spaces. When people are married, it's like other people are angry. When you share a picture of your spouse with you and enjoying life, people become angry. People start typing, what is that? Are you the only people in love? Please, excuse us. But as soon as you say, oh, we just want to say that we are divorced. Oh, welcome. Oh, we celebrate you. You are a strong person. You are a happy person. Oh, we thank you. So it's like people are even angry to see love thrive. People are angry to see unions, to see families. People are happy when other people are, when they see families keep breaking away. They are happy. So the society of today now celebrate divorce or separation more than love. Because that is what we have been made to believe. If you are together, oh, you must be suffering. How can you be together for 20 years? Oh, something must be wrong. How can a woman be in her husband for 20 years? She must be suffering. Somebody is not talking. Somebody is not speaking. Madam, speak up. Speak up. Because when you speak up, you will come out, and we are ready to support you. We are ready to welcome you. So it's like when you see my mother, you say, oh, for her to be living with your father for 40 years, something must be wrong. It is not normal, madam. There must be somebody suffering. We are not saying that people are not suffering, but what we are saying is both spouses, the man and the woman, are all intolerant. People are just ready. We have a culture where before a man or a woman go into marriage, they are trained, they are taught about what it is to be a father and a mother. It is no longer practiced in our culture. And so what they are taught now is how to come out divorced with something. So when a girl is about to get married, you see her family start teaching her, when you go there, open your eyes. Be shining your eyes like cats. Do not be weak. Do not be this. And they tell the man, as you are getting married to this young lady, you better tighten your belt. Some of these young ladies are slave queens, so because when they come out now, they are going to kill you. Right? So you see two people coming together, already ready to get divorced, already ready to be intolerant, already ready to fight every day of their life. And then as soon as they break away, people say, oh yes, oh welcome. We knew it that you've been suffering. So due to colonization and westernization and Islamization, Africans have massively found themselves in a hybridized culture. Oh, okay. So dietary changes. Africans are deviating from cultural diets. Of course, I've talked about this, where we want to eat everything that is packaged in order to feel that we belong. Colonization introduced new language to Africa: Portuguese, English, French, etc. So even in Nigeria, people are proud to tell you that my child do not understand Igbo language, please. They are learning French, they are speaking Spanish, they are speaking English. In fact, parents are now bringing teachers to teach their children British and American accent in places like Abuja and Lagos. Like not just English now, but to learn the accent in order to sound foreign. So when your child is speaking like an American in Nigeria, it's like, you made it, I can't believe this. But when your child is speaking the way Amarachi is speaking, they say, what is this accent? Local accent, right? So you have to speak like you are in the UK, even when you've never entered the plane in your life, just to feel that you belong. So language is a vehicle through which we express worldview. And since African language is not universally accepted, of course, as academic languages, it means Africans will have difficulties defining and presenting the world within their own interpretation. So hybridized language appeals to many Africans as they attempt to fit into the new global culture. So Igbo people, for example, are known for hybridized language, and there is a version called Igbo. So Igbo is where you pick an English word and, like you say, bia, sit here down. Sit here down. So it's like sit down and sit here. That is, you are bringing Igbo and you're bringing English to merge it to create a language. And same way you understand in English language. And so something like good morning, which we ask as question as Ibolachi, right? Ibolachi, like it means in the Igbo sense, have you woken up? Have you like recognize the morning or the universe, right? The universal force of the dawn. But now we made to understand it in the English way. So you say Ututu Oma, which is good morning. Just because you have to be English, you have to understand it. So our proverbs and idioms are no longer understood in their indigenous sense and foundations. They are now understood with the English mind. So even when you are giving out proverbs, Igbo proverbs, somebody is understanding it with the English mindset. So it's not just about the language, it's deeper than that. So the disconnect that you even have to think in the foreign sense in order to understand who you are. You have to read the foreign books in order to understand who you are. It's just a problem that I don't know where to start from. So it's a merge between English and Igbo. The danger is that certain concepts and terminologies will be neglected in favor of English ones, of course. So music arts are affected as well. Even in the field of music, African traditional sound have experienced hybridization. Western pop culture and pop style music have been penetrated the very essence of African soul music, and the younger generation stand to lose cultural music. For instance, I am a chant poet, and when I perform my chant, when I was in Enugu, when I perform my chant, most of the time, the young people are like, what is she doing? What is this? Because our soul music, which is also connected to healing, both spiritually, because in our medical science, it is believed that when something happens, when somebody is sick, you have to check back in the spiritual realm what has been wrong, what the person has done. It's either you are not feeding as you are supposed to feed, it's either you are not living lifestyle as you are supposed to live. So the treatment starts from the spiritual into the physical. But today, we've been made like, why is she chanting? Because chanting was used as therapy. So you chant even when somebody dies. You see somebody is chanting in order to open the hearts of people to cry, right? But today, if it is not kinking, Nobody is understanding it anymore. You have to be pop-like. You have to put in the beats, the fire. When you are trying to chant or do whatever that has to do with the soul music of Africa, no, this is not the era. We're not that, right? So globalization is merging cultures and creating homogeneous society. The implication is that the cultures with dominant economic and scientific and cultural technologies and political willpower will dominate the less vibrant ones. Of course, in this sense, it is always the Western culture which is dominating the Africa, because Africa, if they are failed, they are not, we are not in the global sense. What African languages take? Thank God they are not talking about Swahili, but then it's just talking about it. It's not really in the real sense accepted in the global space. So, thus leading the death of decline of such cultures with the growth of digital revolution and cybernetic connection. So African culture continues to be subsumed in the sea of hybridized culture. So it is practically impossible actually to avoid globalization and its childbirth of cultural hybridization. The implication of this loss is a certain level of identity, of course, because as we travel, for instance, I am now in the US, there must be something that you will pick, right? Which is how also culture continues to evolve. So the solution for me, which is why I am focused on the kind of research I'm focused on, I think that the solution of this could be to depend on aggressive campaign to restore the African intangible heritage. Because when you go to museums, for instance, you see all those artifacts. Behind each of those artifacts are a people's philosophical worldview that is far deeper than just having the aesthetics of such objects, right? So the African culture is not all about wearing clothes. So like you see some of the Africans in diaspora and their groups, all we do is at the end of every year, we come together, at the end of every summer, we come together to wear our attire and organize some events and show that we are Africans. It is far beyond that. Right? We have to awaken our value system, our language, our intangible heritage. What is the spirit? What is our deity saying? What is our philosophical worldviews? How do we connect to our ancestry? What is the spiritual realm connecting to the physical? What is our medical science from the indigenous side? Not just accepting everything that is foreign and just wearing clothes and making hair and thinking that, oh, that is all it is to be an African. No, Africa is not just all about wearing colorful attires and dancing around. No, we are not all about music and making every other person happy. We have spirit and soul. That soul has been destroyed. So in order for us to awaken and connect back to the main spirit and soul of the African continent, we have to start awakening our intangible heritage. Talking about those value systems that is behind those artifacts that they have taken away and is all over there in museums. So it is the soul, the spiritual value and the foundation of a people. This is because tangible heritage is extremely prone to the wave of contemporary change. For instance, tangible, your dress, you can, if it is winter, of course I can't wear this, right? So does it mean that when I don't wear this, I'm no longer an African? Or does it mean that when I now put on my weaves, I'm no longer an African? Or does it mean that when I now use some good cell phones or use the laptop, I'm no longer an African? That is why it is not all about tangibles, just looking at, oh, what made an African, but also digging deep into awakening our spiritual and our soul philosophical views that the world is yet to know. We have a lot that we have to speak about. We have a lot that we have to educate the world about. We have a lot that we have to awaken all over in order for us to indeed connect back to our roots as Africans, both in diaspora and back at home. Because I will tell you, it is one and the same problem, whether you live in the US or you live in Enugu or you live in Soka, my community. It is one and the same problem. In fact, those in the diaspora, from what I see, are even the ones trying harder to connect back to their roots. All the research we are seeing, all the discussions we are seeing are coming from the diasporans. Those at home are still trying all they can to fly away from that cultural identity and be Western and eat Western and live Western. While those in diaspora are saying, guys, this is not it. Oh, let us connect back. They say, guys, I beg, forget. You don't go UK now. You don't want us to do the same thing. But that is not, it's not about you living where you live. It's about you knowing who you are wherever you are. So thank you so much. I will have to stop here.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Oh, I'm already awarding you almost like
Amen. I can't wait for that.
Amarachi. Today you have already been our professor. You can see everyone clapping, and that was really fire. You know, it was in the chat. Someone was like fire. People were dropping messages, and everywhere was, even myself, everywhere was vibrating here. Thank God I'm in my attire today. I would have been a victim of part of what you've been saying. But briefly, Amarachi has really talks about a lot of things which has to do with cultural revival and hybridity. She started with a lot consulting some books to clarify what culture is, what hybrid means, and she also made reference to what cultural assimilation and ways in which cultural preservation of culture is necessary. And she has made mention of how our language, food, religion, chant, music, way of speaking, talking, and acting needs to be preserved amidst the current trend of rejection of our indigenous culture and values. And the only thing is that we're going to have the conversation at the end of all presentations, as we have all the presenters for today. And I just want you to be thinking about some of the questions that might really come up, which has to do with if our culture is not globally accepted, what benefits, economic benefits and relevance is it going to have in a world that encourages assimilation into Western culture? And then you may try to look ahead at the socio-economic transformation that is taking place in our society in such a way that we are no longer the society is not structured the way it was during in the time of our ancestors. So don't you think that has necessitated cultural evolutions? And what we have may be the new culture. And then you may also look at the changing values when we talk about acceptance of divorce and homosexuality and other things. And well, what about the whole idea of evolutions of ethics and what should be accepted? And was it everything about our ancestors and culture to be accepted? And then the question of Africa in the world, which is necessary to also put into consideration. I encourage our participants to drop questions and their other concerns into the chat room. And we're going to speak to this at the end of the whole presentation. Once again, thank you, Amarachi, Attamah, and it's been a very great moment. So.